One. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Discovering Multifamily podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Scandariato with Red Knight Properties. And today we have a special guest here with us, Tim Ryan, who is part of HSS Investment Properties, which is an investment company specializing in all sorts of real estate, but primarily, residential, multifamily and commercial buildings and some single family. So Tim sits in Arcadia, California, and he invests out of state for the most part. As many of you are aware, it's very tough to invest in a state like California, particularly for cash flow purposes. So we want to understand how Tim builds his team and builds his investment pipeline around out of state investments. So thanks for coming on the show, Tim.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So how do you do it? So tell us a little bit more about you and your company and how do you do it?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a contractor, been since 2000. And so, my story is in 2008, I was, hit hard and didn't have anything to do for a couple of years there. So that's when I really got interested in investing in real estate. And so really started trying to find out, okay, how do I, starting out with a flip or a single family and that kind of thing. I quickly learned that multifamily is the way to go. And I also quickly learned that investing in my backyard, which would be great, we all want to do that, but really didn't make any sense. Southern California is extremely high. I mean, it's an appreciation play. If you hold on to it and go negative cash flow for a number of years, you might look like a hero in 10 years, but that's not my strategy. So we want the cash flow and the appreciation. So I began to look out of state, and my first market was in Tennessee. And so I started investing there in multifamily. And now I'm investing in an area in Milwaukee area, a tertiary part of that. So, one of the things that people ask me all the time, immediately when I say this, that I'm investing out of state, how do you do it? There's the questions about property management and the difficulties. And I've got some, thoughts on that and how I've been able to do it successfully.
Yeah. So how do you do it? Do you property manage yourselves? How do you structure your deals? Do you partner with on-site operators? How do you,
So I'll tell you the first thing I think that's the key to making this work is really getting deep into that market. So what I tend to do, I focus on one market at a time. I've talked to many investors over the years, and I'll ask them, what are they doing, out of state? And I'll hear these stories about, they'll start to say they're, looking at Oklahoma City, and then they heard Tucson, Arizona is good. And then, Indianapolis. And I said, wait, just slow down. Hold on right there. I said, I think that's your first problem. I said, you're all over the place. You don't, you're not focused. And my business plan is focus, find a market that we know is going to grow. It's in a growth pattern, and really get deep into that. It's done very well for me. And I've seen people just jumping all over and unless they're a big company can handle that. But for us, smaller investors, you really got to focus. So I focus on those areas. But one of the other keys is really getting to know people in that market. And my first market, I did okay. This second out of state market, I've really done well with getting to know everybody, people in the city government, other business owners. It's really fun. And I think it's a good lesson for other investors of if I hear these stories about everybody, you want to go after the brokers. You got to do these broker relations and make sense, right? Of course, the brokers are going to find you deals. A couple things I say is, unless you go to that market, take them to coffee, take them to lunch, you're not going to get the deals. It's very hard to get deals from an email and a text and a phone call, right? I have a story about a deal that when I was in that last market in Tennessee. I called my broker and I said, I'm heading out of town. I've got 20 minutes. We've got to meet for coffee. We got to do it right now. And we met and sat down. Within a couple months, he calls me with a 104 unit deal that I end up buying. And he ended up telling me, he goes, that meeting in person was key. He goes, I probably would have called somebody else. And so that it's fun to see this come together when you really get to know people and really get, deep into that.
So did you end up buying that?
Yeah, Yeah, that 104 was a great deal. We bought in 2012, sold in 2018. It made great positive cash flow the whole time. I syndicated that deal and bought it for 4.1 and sold it for 6.85 in a great
Wow.
market. Yeah, and somebody else is even getting a good cap rate on that. So it was a yeah, but all the totally off market, totally because of that. And so I say again, it's a broker relationship, but not because I was just emailing and telling him, hey, I'm real over here. I had to go see him in person, right?
So let's talk about that. Let's narrow down our topic a little bit more. So when you're visiting new markets, you try to find out who the top brokers are for multifamily. Let's just use multifamily as the example and take them for coffee. So how do you like it seems a little overwhelming. Number one, like how do you find the brokers in the first place? Or because there's so many of them, right? And there's only a few good ones that you want to know. So how do you find that out first? And then number two, how do you coordinate your schedule? Do you stay in a market for one day, 2 days, 3 days, or the whole week to try to fit everything in? And also number three is, do you just go to the market just to sit around and network, or do you actually have something to go for and maybe a deal that you're already looking at or something you have under contract or do you have assets there where it makes sense for you to go
Yeah,
instead of just going and
right.
networking?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, so early on, it's about, looking at the market, not just on Google Earth, but actually going there, right? And so early on, yeah, there may not be, you always, line up certain properties to look at for sure. But so to answer those questions, yeah, getting to know people just in town and asking them who has been the biggest part. So in other words, there's other tricks. You look on, you know, I learned early on, you look on LoopNet, not for deals, but for who are the active brokers. Who's active and selling and buying and those kind of things. You find brokers different ways. But I think the key that's done it for me, rather than just trying to find them here and there, is to to know people in town who can then refer me. And so, I've had residential agents referring me to the active commercial brokers because I got to know them. And so it's really like getting into that town. So what I'll do is typically take as small as a 3-day trip and sometimes 4, and always on a weekday because it's a business day. So travel on a Thursday, come back Sunday, or travel on a Friday, come back Monday night, that kind of thing, so that we have line up some business meetings and showings, that kind of thing. But there's a lot of organizations. Of course, you got your RIA groups, and there's other meetups and things, and I go to those places. I go there and ask people, and some people after a while, because I'll go every other month or at least every 3 months. Some people think I'm actually live in town, and so they start to talk to me. Hey, where do you live? And they get surprised when I'm out of town. But I think that's a difference, because I didn't even do that the first time I went out, and I really tried to meet people, and I'm not that extroverted. It's not that easy for me. So, I have to go to these different places. There's nonprofits that are looking to revitalize an area, and you go to those areas and they have resources for you. The city government, the city hall, has a planning commissions and city administrators that are actually excited to help you. So that's one of the other things I do. I like to plug in and get to know the councilman and the aldermen, all those type of things. So yeah, so they're fast. So there's no sitting around. I tell people when I bring people, or bring some of my JVs with me, or friends, and I say, this is business trip. This is not, this isn't for fun. We're going to be going 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. or maybe midnight if we're taking someone out to drink. So it's go for a few days, but it's super fun. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a fun time. And my follow-up question for that would be, how has it changed at all? Has your lead generation um, platform changed at all from the COVID, or is it pretty much more or less the same, or is the Zoom going to substitute that in person?
Yeah.
feel? What's your opinion on that from field
Yeah.
flow perspective?
Definitely was a tough year, of course, because you can't meet in person. There's no meetups in person anymore, and the real estate investment groups and stuff. So that has changed, but I see it already starting to creep back, and we can meet with mass, and so I'm seeing things are opening up, restaurants are opening up, that kind of thing. So I think we just had a setback here as far as that goes. But yeah, I still do. I'll do mailers to directly to sellers, and so I'm still doing some of the same strategies of finding deals. But I'll tell you, the connections and the networking has been the best by far. Just somebody knows somebody, and then something comes up. This market I'm in right now, I've bought. Been mostly investing in a downtown setting, a tertiary market, and I've bought 14 buildings. 12 of them came off market. And, I even know the director of the local chamber of commerce, and she got me a deal and called me up and said, "Hey, someone just told me they're listing, and I thought about you, and I bought that." So it's again, it's those connections and really getting deep in there. And
That's excellent. And then, so Tim, I'm sure you have your criteria on what market you want to focus on. But how do you kind of determine that? You mentioned Wisconsin. Is that what you mentioned?
Yeah.
Yeah, Wisconsin.
Southeast Wisconsin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so we do some research and find it's basically the concept of following jobs and seeing where, some manufacturing and some industries coming in. We like to see places that already have a good base and a good industry so that, it's not like a one manufacturing town that, it could all go to heck if they went out of business. But that area is strong with manufacturing, strong with a lot of big businesses growing, and so really excited about that. And that's typically the first market I was in was Chattanooga, Tennessee. I actually went there in 2009, and there are a lot of investors right now in Chattanooga, which is great, and it's growing, and it's a fantastic town. When I got there in 2009, nobody was there. It was a ghost town. The downtown was boarded up stores, and it's just amazing to see what happened. Well, what brought us there was Volkswagen announced a plant was being built. And, we believe that concept that's going to bring jobs and growth. And boy, it has. I mean, that town has been amazing. So it's been fun. We actually been selling out now, we've ridden that curve, and now we're in our next, ground floor market.
Nice. Do you, because there's so many different, using the United States as an example, so many different states that have, population growth, job growth. I'm in Florida. That's been pretty hot over the past year. I mean, over the past 5 years, really. Florida and Georgia and, the Carolinas. So if you're following the job growth, are you also looking at your infrastructure in terms of your location, or you kind of want to focus on a specific region, and then kind of go from there? How do you?
Yeah, I mean, I really liked investing in the South. I think there's so many, there's so much growth going on there. I haven't ever really plugged into Texas. It's been growing for decades, and it's going to keep growing, and same with Florida. So that's the thing. It's like, I found my criteria. I found what worked for me, and I plug in. And so it's like I see, I'll have people ask me, well, what about, Dallas, Texas? I don't know. It's not my market. It's not my market. So, I found something that worked that I believe is going to be a big growth market, and there's metrics for that. There's, reasons why we're there with jobs and infrastructure and good governments that are, behind development and good policies. So they're definitely looking for that too. We don't have the warmth up there. They say people are going, to the warmth, but that's okay. You can't have everything. So, but yeah, I think but back to what I was saying, it's that focus, because I really want to help other investors. A lot of investors ask me, how did you do it, Tim? And how can I get in this? And that's my first thing. First thing is focus on an area, and they say, farm, your little farm area. Well, that's your market. Secondly is get to know people, go there often. You cannot do this from your phone and internet. You can only go so far. And then things open up. then take action, right? Then you got to close on deals. Well, that's another key too. You go in town being from out of town and you kicking tires left and right, you're going to get a reputation real fast that you're not actually a closing on deals. So it's really important. If you find a deal, you close on it. And I find too, in new markets, the first deal's always the best by far, even if you do some amazing deal later on, because that first deal, you can tell everybody, oh, I already own in this market. And it changes, people's demeanor changes big time. And it doesn't matter what size, almost. It could be anything. If you're into 100-unit apartments, grab an 8-unit. Say, oh, I already own an 8-unit. It opens up those doors to credibility.
Sure. That's an interesting strategy too to use. Tim, how can people find you?
Yeah, I have a website, investwithhss.com. And HSS is the letters of my 3 kids, Hannah, Sam, and Shane. So, it's kind of a family business, and I'm helping families. There's a lot of people that want to get into real estate and learn, and I'm helping people. I JV, I bring people in on syndications, but I'm helping people take their dream of wanting to be in real estate and help them. So investwithhss.com is the best way, and contact through there.
That's great. No, I'll definitely encourage my audience to check out Tim's platform. And if you liked what you heard and or saw, if you could please give us a rating and review on iTunes, it'll help Tim and my message get out to a greater audience. That's just the way iTunes works. So we would appreciate that. And we'll have a link to Tim's website in the show notes in iTunes, and also in our social media descriptions as well. So I want to thank Tim again for coming on our show today, and hope to have you again soon.
Thank you. Enjoyed it. I appreciate it.